Namaste, Mooji. Welcome to Soul Journeys. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me also. Very, very good, Ted. Thank you.
Over its 22-year history, Soul Journeys has interviewed many in pursuit of self-realization in this lifetime. And now we interview Mooji. Mooji is one of the foremost authorities on the subject of awakening today.
The invitation came into being gradually.
The invitation is one of the most profound ways that Mooji points people to their true nature. It is a simple 25-minute exercise that many around the world have found to be a very powerful guidance.
The invitation came gradually and to try and find, first of all, a kind of exercise that I could do with seekers to say, if you don't do this and if you leave this aside and so on, then look at what happened. I wanted to put it in such a way that it would be without and avoiding too many spiritual terminologies and concepts in a way that anyone could really listen to it and really get the greatest benefit from it.
Mooji is not a teacher and emphasizes that he simply points people to directly experience their own true nature. After awakening in 1993, he now devotes himself to pointing others to discovering the same truth within themselves. And as you'll notice, his use of direct and clear language is important.
I feel that also presently there's so much suspiciousness or hesitation or resistance to certain spiritual terms and so on. They have been largely misunderstood. And very often they have been, I would say, distorted.
Yeah.
And their original meaning and the impact and importance of the meaning, the profundity of the meaning somehow got overshadowed and so on. So I felt it was very important to find a way of communicating the same truth in a simple language that people didn't have to go, okay, that's a kind of Buddhist thing, or this is a kind of Hindu thing. It's something that was very universal, as truth is.
Yeah. Mooji had a prominent spiritual teacher in his own life, Papaji, who in turn was a disciple of Ramana Maharshi of Arunachala, who taught self-inquiry, how to see through ignorance to abide in self-awareness. You say, why start at the beginning to gain freedom, to gain liberation? But I would say, why not start at the beginning? Because look what you're missing by starting at the end, as you suggest, to start at the end in order to find liberation.
I just say that, we're going to start at the end, really to counteract a very common expectations in people's minds that we're going to go on a journey and then eventually we will reach some place of significant recognition. And I felt actually the truth, if it is true, cannot simply be a gift at the end of some striving. It has to be something much more than a sacred cluster of holy concepts. It had to be life, spirit, truth has to be something that is what we are already.
Mooji comes from Jamaica, lived in London, and now he resides with some of his followers in Monte, Sahaja, Portugal. His story is told here in 3 parts, published simultaneously on Soul Journeys. Part 1, the first half of our interview with him on the invitation, and Part 2, more on the invitation and other questions about Mooji's life, and Part 3, the invitation itself, an opportunity to learn more clearly the path to genuine self-awareness. Welcome to Soul Journeys. This interview was recorded in Coronado, California, and on Monte Sahaja, Portugal, on June 25th, 2019.
I'm speaking on behalf of people to share why I start in this way, to counteract the tendency of feeling, okay, we already like this, and truth is something we have to dig quite a lot and very deeply and persistently before we reach it. I did not want to put that kind of task in front of them.
You know, I started at the beginning, and that was 30 long years ago, and I'm still digging that hole as deeply as I can You talk about increasingly moving away from mind-body identification. You can't say it more clearly than that. Mind-body identification. Say more, if you will, about this, because my question is, can you ever move away from it entirely, yet still be in the body? And you're a good example of this.
Yes. Well, moving away from it is really changing the focus. We have enough been conditioned to identify as the body and as the conditioning that arose around the body that created or formulated itself as a sort of independent personal self. And it's so deeply entrenched in the consciousness of human beings that no one questions it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's like we just take it for granted. I am John. I was born in such a time, and I studied in this place. I graduated. I'm married. I have 3 children, and so on. Or have been meditating for so many years, and so on. And it's largely accepted. That's the normal currency of conversation for many spiritual seekers. So when I say get away from the body-mind fixation, it is not an easy thing for people to do. I point out further, I don't just leave them with that statement. I say that it is very important, first of all, to see that the body-mind and the functioning of the body, mind, personality are functions. And these functions are perceived and perceivable.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the truth is not in layers and layers underneath anything at all. It is right here. But it is perceived or conceived to be deep, and you must dig deeply and so on. It is so, for myself, it felt a bit like fishes in the ocean searching for water, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
I have to make these simple things, and people may not experience it to be simple. In the beginning, they think, what is he talking about? We just don't understand. Because of the conditioned mind and the way in which the mind is programmed over so much time to approach life, and even the sense of that people have heard the term of awakening or self-realization, and it is set up as something really monumental, and you know, it takes lifetimes. Even some people say it takes lifetimes, and you know, without saying how many lifetimes you may have spent already. But I mean, it's put in such a a powerful and almost out of reach way for most people, and I find that it is not. My seeing is that everyone is the self. It's just that we don't know it yet. We haven't discovered it.
Wow,
and
that's
find a way that that would be accessible to most people, not necessarily people who have got a strong intellectual training or mental training or something, but for everyone with a little bit of common sense and with the urge to look,
this
that
is
it would be available for them.
this is so very, very encouraging. You often talk about in the invitation and everywhere else during your satsangs. I hear it all the time. You talk about the vast empty space of awareness, which is alive, which has intelligence, which is silent, which of course is empty by definition and has no beginning and no end. It is eternal. I have this right, don't I, that you're talking about individuals thinking of themselves in a new way as the formless space. That's our true identity, or do I have that not right?
Yes, it's our true nature. Identity may imply, it's very easy for someone to feel identity as something personal. So I will even endeavor to really avoid saying identity. It is our true nature. It is what we are. Identity can imply something personal. So when I speak of the vast space, I don't want to just speak about it and leave it as such. I am willing to guide people into that, to that direct experience for themselves, so they can stand in the authority of their own seeing and their own experiencing. This is what makes it so appealing, that I'm not just passing on some technique or some theory. We can walk hand in hand in this looking, but the discovery is entirely their own, you see?
So can I draw a conclusion that because the vast empty space is our truest nature, that our human mind-body self is not our truest nature?
The mind-body personality is an expression arising out of that.
Okay.
But it cannot be fundamentally or essentially or profoundly what we are.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we speak about body, mind, and personality, these are variable. They constantly keep changing also. So something which keeps changing cannot be said to be reliable, because each time you look, different factors are contributing to the way we perceive. Also, sometimes we are looking and our moods are different. Even if the object of perception is still, the moods and the feelings about to change. So we're not talking about something that is so reliable. And this is, I tried to point this out early, because I feel that once people have heard this, it's not difficult for them to agree, but that is true. In fact, when my mind is always drifting, the body is growing and changing. The personality I feel I've described myself and thought of myself in so many different ways, changing personalities. Which one of them is true? Which can be reliable, you see?
Yeah. I have to tell you that it's a big, big hill to climb to think of my truest identity as being the vast empty space of awareness. But
of course it is. And that's why it will not do as a teaching. It will not do just to say that. And you see, so this is why the experience, the recognition, is at the very heart of it. And the invitation takes you in that, you may say, journey of introspection or looking. And it is made so simple that people are not left to say, figure it out. In fact, when, as you know from the invitation, I ask at the beginning, please, whatever ideas you have about yourself or about life or the world and so on, I am just going to request of you to suspend that, to leave it aside for the duration of this guidance, which is about half an hour or so. And if they agree, that's very important that they agree for that. Then
they have to be patient.
The patience, yes. Well, if you are going to be in such a hurry, then you will not get it. You will not get anything, in fact, of any value. There has to be at least some basic patience, which will come with your earnestness and with the genuineness of your seeking, will ensure that, somehow some patience must be there. Because if you value it, you must be willing to give a little time to it.
I want to tell you right up front. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And the time that is being asked is just like half an hour each time to just listen.
Exactly.
And without getting into some intellectual processing. It's simpler guidance that I feel anyone can do. The children also can take to it, and they do also.
And I want to say from our own personal experience, Jody and I listened to it not 3 or 4 times. We listened to it every night at 5 o'clock for months and months and months every night. And the result is that at least a nugget of new insight occurs almost every night by doing that. Yes. I want to ask you a question now, and I promise you it's not a trick question whatsoever. You say, notice the limitless empty space of formless awareness. That's a mouthful, and I really like the way you phrase it. Notice the limitless empty space of formless awareness. But if there is nothing in that space but awareness, Mooji, what is there to be aware of?
Okay. Now, let me delight myself with that one, because as you notice with the invitation, what is really fascinating about it is that I ask you first to be empty. I don't say learn and study all these books and then I'm going to ask you about it. I say something that may seem very, very strange. I say empty your mind of all your concepts, of all your ideas, imagination, memory, desires, and we can do that. So just turn away from it. Don't include this for the next half an hour. And people they do that. Some cheat a little bit. They feel, no, I'm not sure where I'm going with this, so I just hold on to something. And they don't say it in words. They do it in the way that we do, in a very subtle way, that they just take up that position, you see. But if they listen and they cooperate, how fascinating is it that when you are totally empty, empty of of going to the mind and all your previous researches mentally and all your education, leave all this aside. Then it's that time when you're totally willing to be not holding on to any shape of thought, any concepts, that I ask you the most important questions that perhaps even scientists and psychologists and philosophers are not able to answer.
You ask the questions, but you don't get the answers.
I ask the questions. You say I don't get the answers.
Well, you point to them, but you really ask people to have them come from their own heart.
Yes. I will not answer the questions. The answers are going to come from somewhere. You see, that is the most intriguing thing. And how amazing that when people are empty of intention, empty of study, empty of favorite concepts, such questions as what remains here when everything is left aside, they can begin to answer without the look of thinking. They're not scratching their heads and so on. It flows from them. Such existential questions as, where did this come from? Is it created? Was it born? Can it die? Questions that people go, how could you dare ask me such a question? In their normal state of mind, they would be flabbergasted. What is this guy talking about? But yet when they cooperate with the invitation to simply leave certain things aside, and it's not difficult, it's not strenuous, then they find, sometimes surprising to themselves, that some response that seemed totally certain, and you must remember that how often people are answering without conferring. They all answer from that place to confirm
that's right.
that they are seeing. How can you see that which is without form?
And that comes to you more and more as you listen to the invitation. And I think I'm remiss in not saying something I wanted to say earlier, that for the benefit of those people who are finding this really interesting, as I hope they do, that I just received permission from your people today to be able to add on to the end of this interview from your website, your video version of the invitation, so people can see firsthand what this is. You used the word several times in your answer that leads me right into my next question, and that is, regarding your thoughts, you say, just stay empty, just find zero, stay at zero, like zero if you can. But many think of their minds, as I do, as being a busy 10-lane Los Angeles freeway of chaos and thoughts that never seem to quite stop. Are most people capable of bringing themselves to zero thoughts or close to it?
Yes.
I better get with the program.
The thing is, they think they're not able to. And that's a different thing. But there are some people, for instance, children would cooperate very quickly with that. They know just to drop all this stuff, drop all this thing, and they find it fun also. To just don't engage. Not a question of going through every single item and putting them down and so on. Just with like throwing a net over the whole thing. So don't mention about your mind. Okay. Let's not get personal about anything for the moment. Okay. Don't pick up any new thoughts. Don't pick up any new ideas just for this short duration. Sure, that's okay. And they can cooperate very easy. And most adults, they do as well. They can. In order to really draw the benefit from the invitation, they must do that. And it's not difficult. That's what is also remarkable, is that you can do it. You may feel it is difficult because we give so much importance to our mind. Sometimes we have a fear that if I do that, if I really let go of things, I won't be able to get them back again, or whatever it is that may be happening.
Yeah, I better start looking for my 73-year-old child inside of me somewhere so I can use that approach to get this.
You don't need your child. You don't need your child. Right here you can do. You may also see that, watch the what is it that resists that or seems to get in the way of that. Then we are moving into self-inquiry a bit. We can talk about it another time.
Okay. I'm moving into, to use your words, a different section here having to do with the interfering mind. And I must say, I've never heard anybody sort of beat up, and I'm using that term loosely, to beat up on the human mind as much as you do. You say in the invitation, don't trust the mind, don't believe in the mind, don't engage in the mind. Furthermore, you say the mind is simply trying to trick you to veer afar from the path to realization. But isn't it the mind, Mooji, that helps me to pursue my awakening? I mean, I don't think I would be here with you today without the mind's help along the way.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that, and maybe it gives me a chance to clarify. Mind, generally, when we speak mind, you know, everything is also mind. You know, to appreciate something, to be creative, all of this is mind. When I speak about the mind, I'm talking about the particular psychological psychological aspect of mind, where we are identified, the ego mind, I would say. That part of mind which is shaped as the ego, which you believe this is what I am my conditioning. We don't say that with words, but effectively that's how we behave. I am my conditioning, I'm my thoughts, and so on. And most people don't initially discern the difference between, you know, the mind and that which witnesses the mind. It doesn't come to mind, so to speak, you know. So when I speak about this, I'm not condemning the mind in the general sense, because I'm speaking the sort of personalized mind, the personalized mind, that when you know, as you begin to look inside, or to say follow the guidance, you see this mind energy coming up.
Yeah.
And you have to admit that it is not willing to cooperate so much with this journey of self realization. It seems to get in the way. It reminds you that, oh, it brings up feelings of resistance, or, you know, sort of fear or whatever. I'm talking about that particular quality and behavior of mind. That we know, don't listen to him. Of course, mind in its pragmatic functioning in our daily lives of, you know, whatever practical things you have to do, and this is fine. But when it comes to personal identity, we have a problem there.
I'm used to that ever since 1975, when I took and learned TM. I've had some success, but boy, it's always a battle. This is very important, what you say, this next phrase in the invitation, that the mind gains life for itself by deceiving you. Does that mean that my mind is necessarily my enemy? Are you saying that there is little, if anything, positive that comes from the mind? And I'm referencing to what you just had to say about the mind as well.
Yes. I'm starting at the point that when you wake up to the fullness, the truth of who you are, not as a mental or intellectual conviction, but as an experiential fact for you, and then somehow this, the antagonism, the frustrations, the play of resistance and fear, and that will dissipate, that will go. But until then, what happens is that as long as you have a conviction that you are a person, then the mind in its psychological portrait is really going to interact with this sense of a person, to keep it from recognize its seem, to keep it from recognizing its fundamental nature. So it seems as though the mind, this mind relationship that we have through egoic identity, that is going to be quite a complex space to move through and beyond, you know, because our ego identity is really prone to feelings of insecurity, fear, resistance, judgments, and so on. So it's a very volatile state. It cannot be your fundamental state. You know, but we can live for many, many human years in that state without actually coming to the real understanding, and to go beyond mental understanding into experiential conclusion of what you are.
I think many of us go through our lives living that whole way, living all the way through.
Yes. So what, in a sense, is like what I was referring to often is when we try to take on the mind, to kind of fight or resist the mind, I say it grows with resistance. Because why do I say this? Is because if you're fighting the mind, that is itself an endorsement that you believe the mind is real enough to fight.
Yeah.
When you begin to actually, on the contrary, begin to observe what you call mind, or just be observing with detachment, because I often point to detachment. When you observe with detachment, gradually you come to, wait a second, but these just clouds passing. The feelings here, the thing that really convinces us so much and gets us so much is that the mind is not merely arising as thoughts, it's arising as energy in the body also.
Sure.
As fear and anxiety and so on. All of this I call mind together.
Sure. The mind triggers adrenaline. The mind triggers adrenaline in us.
Yes. Yes. In the system of consciousness, which we call a person. Yeah. But as you learn and begin to continue to observe without logging into what you see, gradually you become not just pulled into the movie of your projections or of your subjective impressions. You begin to experience the quality and the space of the observing space, not just the show that's going on. And largely, we are pulled into the noise and the traffic of what we are seeing, and we're reporting about that. But as you learn to observe with detachment, more impersonally, you gradually come to see, wait, I mean, I'm not so pulled into. It's not that the mind can simply snap its finger and I'm pulled into.
Right.
It's so. I'm become aware. Then the more you practice this, you become aware that, wait a second, the observer is not the thing being observed. What is observable is the traffic of sensations that come in the form of thoughts, feelings, sensations, and so on. This is very significant stage,
I think it has to be underscored too, as you said maybe 2 or 3 minutes ago, the more you fight the mind, the more you give it power, added power. I want to talk about one of the favorite phrases from the invitation. Obviously, by now you've concluded that I have many, and I don't mean this as a trick question either. Mooji, you describe the I am awareness as being the ungraspable, intelligent vastness. Does this mean there is no way for me to understand myself or for us to understand ourselves because it's ungraspable?
It's ungraspable to the personalized mind.
To the personalized mind.
While we are thinking in the mode of personhood, it will be ungraspable. And this is why I ask that please leave that habit. I'm going to call it a habit, to just pick up the thoughts and running with the thoughts and using the old measuring as a way of grasping what is profound. So by the personalized mind, it will be inaccessible. But as you are asked to leave things aside and you find that you can, you're discovering a greater space in yourself that if we only imagine from a personal standpoint, it will just seem this is impossible. But in the actuality of experiencing your discovery, it feels totally natural.
Yeah.
You see? And that is what is important also, not just, exchanging concepts, but actually not just hearing, but listening and following through with the pointings. You are experiencing for yourself. I'm not telling you what you should experience. I may indicate, but right here, what you are seeing, because sometimes the mind itself comes in and say, I'm lost. Yeah. When in fact, what you are experiencing is the infinite spaciousness. And because you're used to locating the sense of yourself in association with something you consider to be still, you feel, oh, I'm lost. Yeah. I might remind you that even the sense of lost is also perceived. And to train the attention to keep recognizing to be comfortable with its seeing rather than to react through the mind.
I wanted to ask you about our stories. You say you can stop being the person you think you are, the human Ted, let's say, when you stop giving attention to your stories. Never heard anybody say that before, and I got it immediately when you said it. The question is, does this mean, Mooji, that we should dismiss our stories? We all have some beautiful stories as well as some ugly, painful stories.
We can't initially do that because of the momentum of habit, and also because not in a sense, having the sense we know nothing more than our ego and our mind, we're not going to be willing to give it up.
Mm-hmm.
At best, in the invitation, I say, can you suspend that for a while? Don't speak about killing mind and nothing. I say, suspend the mind preoccupation for this duration of time. So I don't feel that I would say to someone, you know, just drop your story, unless I'm speaking to somebody who is a more mature seeker and who understand the implication of what I'm saying, meaning don't engage with that, just drop that for a moment.
Yeah.
But when you come, I wouldn't use that type of language.
Right.
You know, and I would not expect that. First of all, what is beautifully refreshing about the invitation is that I'm not asking you anything you cannot do. It's very, very simple. We take the steps together, and if people find that the way that the invitation is put together, you know, it's still, I don't get this and so on, I just tell them, well, you know, then leave it for now.
Yeah.
I can't be going, you know, because I feel that it's so much a heart movement. It's so much simple if you're willing, you see. But if you tend to think about everything, then your mind will perceive it in the way like it's a problem and it's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Where in fact, someone else might find it really easy and refreshing. And wow, I don't have to do all this spiritual gymnastics. I just have to listen and follow, and it's quite simple. Easy.
Yeah, I basically don't think of your work as for beginners. I mean, I'm sure there are very smart people who pick up on what you're saying right away if they've never been exposed to it. But that's it requires a bit of a foundation. Speaking of which, you made another profound statement, not in the invitation, but just last week or so. We've been listening to your recorded satsangs during your Lisbon intensive in Portugal, and you said it's hard to come out of the habit of personhood. Again, a new term. I've never heard it used in conjunction with referring to ourselves. The more you become attached to it, the habit of personhood, you say, the more it becomes a fact for you. So my question is, how much hope can there be for people like me late in life? Personhood has been a very, very, very long habit.
It is totally accessible and possible for you.
Good.
I stand by that, and I stand by that whenever I feel I've been approached in a very sincere way that someone really wants to find out. I am naturally attracted to someone who is curious or in a very strong stage of the need to discover what is true. I am naturally and automatically attracted to that. And if I have that opportunity, then I will engage with them, and something must come out of it. This is what if it doesn't, it's because they were bluffing. They were not really ready. And some people are bluffing. Some people, they say, oh, yes, yes, yes. And when you start, they feel a little bit of a little pinch from the mind, and they dismount and they're running away. But for anyone who is really sincere and really, really touched by it, sometimes people come and without even listening to invitation or knowing anything of self-inquiry, they're already somehow feeling something from the atmosphere of satsang. They feel, wow, what is this? I just drove one girl back from the station just a few days ago. I was not meant to pick her up. I was simply taking someone to the station, but she was coming off. I took her. I never met her before. And on the way, as she's coming, she was saying, oh, what is this vibration? It's so wonderful. I feel so comfortable. It's fun. And as she come into Monte Sahaja, again, she went, oh, it was so beautiful. I feel like I've been here before. And you see, so sometimes the grace precedes the teaching. And we begin to just feel comfortable, sometimes uncomfortable. Sometimes also you may feel deeply uncomfortable because immediately the mind is in resistance.
Mm-hmm.
You see? It's almost as though it knows that it's coming to a place where it's going to be challenged. And the person doesn't really realize it. Now, this is a funny thing. Then, as soon as the person, let's say, the consciousness in its expression as personhood, comes into the orbit of real opportunity, the mind comes in and whoa, and then the fear comes, you see, like this, they start to back away. It doesn't happen so often, but it happens enough.
I want to switch topics a little bit now and talk about other seeming obstacles in our illusory lives that we lead. About the invitation, you say, and this is one time when you did use a phrase 3 times in a row. It works, it works, it works. That's in your 30-minute version of the invitation, and I love it. Some don't seem to get there as quickly as others to the first level of enlightenment. Are they doing something incorrectly?
It just depends on their inner fitness or maturity also. Because I say it works for those who are like fully on board. And but if someone is carrying a certain amount of suspiciousness or resistance, that will get in the way, and that will slow down your absorption in the seeing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a kind of mechanical thing that it works, you just press the button and it works. It means that in itself it is pure guidance, and if you are earnest in your genuine in your seeking, it will produce a very positive result. On the way to that, you may see that it provokes a lot of resistance that comes up inside.
Mm-hmm.
But for most mature seekers, they understand that what that resistance is. They don't see it as a sort of bad luck or things are going wrong. They sometimes actually, on the contrary, they can see, thank you, because something is actually moving. I can feel it. My mind doesn't like this. Sometimes people tell you, my mind doesn't like this. So right there, they qualify because they show a distinction between the mind resistance and the one who observes the mind. That's already a more advanced stage of spiritual understanding and experience.
I find that we're in pretty good sync every once in a while in this conversation, and I want to pick up on something you just said because it's what I planned to ask you. You say some resistance, some fear is likely to arise when doing the invitation, which we know about. But I would suggest also, and maybe it's just me, maybe I'm the only one experiencing this, it also seems like more obstacles in life or problems in life, greater magnitude, greater frequency begin to creep into your life as well. Is this to be as expected as the, what you talk about, the resistance or fear coming into your life?
Are you speaking about in the process of listening to the invitation, or are you talking more broadly than that?
I'm talking about the invitation and the effort that any of us might make towards getting there. In other words, once we're sending out signals.
What is surprising for many people in the invitation is that of how simple it is actually. Because you're not being asked to do things which will provoke resistance in you. The resistance will come, of course they will come. And they will come sometimes even more forcibly because there really is a chance to really get it. If there really isn't a chance to get it, resistance won't come so much. The resistance is an indicator that somehow the mind function feels a bit threatened, that will come up. We are to understand that and to accept that is one of the challenges that may come, but you must press on beyond that. And the way is shown how to, he said, don't give so much importance to that right now. You see, just continue resting in the seeing rather than paying too much attention to what the mind is saying about it.
At this point in our interview, I wanted to ask Mooji about a significant definition of self-realization that I first learned in India from our primary spiritual teacher, Sai Baba.
Right. I have kind of been on this path my whole life, but with great seriousness since 1989. Over the course of the years and many, many trips to ashrams in India with my wife, Jody, I've heard the term Satchidananda, which I've heard you use too, being, awareness, and bliss. Another way of describing our truest identity. The first two components there, being and awareness, I hope I'm not being arrogant, but I see those as achievable for almost all of us. It's that last part, that third part called bliss, that seems to be rather elusive for people.
Okay, well, I mean, Satchidananda, if we take it section by section, Sat means existence, and Chid means consciousness, and Ananda means bliss, inherent bliss. So if we take it in that stage, we come to recognize that we naturally exist. You are sure of your existence, and that existence is the chid is you're conscious of that existence. You're conscious that the consciousness and existence, they go together. Once that is really recognized, bliss is the fruit that comes out of it.
I see.
Bliss comes out of it, and the bliss. When I say come, now I've come to see. One time I would have thought that bliss comes later, no? But actually I found the bliss is always there, but it has been covered by the habitual identity as a person and the fascination that comes through the mind to keep paying attention to transient phenomenon. While I'm engaged with this, I'm distracted from my own self. And you can say that ignorance of the self is only, if I want to put it a simple word, we're living in a state of distraction from who we are.
Thank you, Mooji, for part 1. The very best way of learning more about Mooji is by going directly to his website, mooji.org. Here's a preview now of what's in store on part 2, the second half of our Souljourns interview with Mooji.
We established that you're awake, and this is a personal question, if you don't mind. Does anything ever get you down, Mooji?
Yes. First of all, I don't go around saying that I'm awakened. I don't feel appropriate thing to say. Yes, I'm awake to what I am. I am what I am. Now you ask a question, does everything ever get me down? What I would like to say is that every kind of feeling can come, but they are momentary in their appearance. You see, they can come. I can feel a bit sad about something, a bit annoyed about something, even angry about something. But it's like it has no root. To feel things very personally is a very rare thing.
After doing the invitation, you say, if you want to re-identify with the person or with the world that you think you come from, you may do that, but you don't have to. You'll find that they don't actually exist one day. Could this be the biggest fear, that people are suddenly confronted with the realization that life is just a dream? Their human life is just a dream?
Thank you. Good question.
These questions and many more in part 2 of our interview with Mooji, posted now on Souljourns. And then in part 3, also posted now to Souljourns, Mooji's The Invitation itself. Here's a preview.
Can I take it for granted that all of you here, wherever you're hearing my voice now, that you have come open and with the purpose of discovering your true self, and that this search for truth is not merely as an idea to have in your head, as something that you believe, but it must be experiential also. If I were to assume that you've come, and each one of you now, you say inside, like you've come and you've said, Mooji, I hear that you can help me or guide me into my true nature, what is here. And I've come for this. I want to be in this because, my person doesn't really work. It doesn't bring the joy and the completeness that I hear you speak about. I feel quite unfulfilled in that respect. But I know and I believe that there are awakened beings on this planet. They've always been. And I want to be one of them. My life has come to this. I feel that it's my good fortune in this life to desire and to aspire for liberation.
Thank you for watching Souljourns. See parts 2 and 3 of Mooji next, and see more of our 400-plus Souljourns interviews at souljourns.net or at youtube.com/souljourns.